everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Carolyn, and this video is the first video in a series on my channel that I'm going to be doing called Everything I Know About Makeup. And in this series, I'm going to be teaching you just that. I'm not a trained makeup artist. I've mostly been doing makeup on myself. I've done makeup on like a couple family members once or twice. So it's mostly been on myself, but I have been doing makeup on myself for like the past 20 years. I started watching beauty YouTube in about 2008, and I learned how to do my makeup watching a lot of tutorials from makeup artists on YouTube like Wayne Goss, Candy Johnson, Lisa Eldridge, so many people. And before that, before YouTube was even a thing in my life, I went to the MAC counter a lot with my aunt, and she loved makeup and loved MAC, and I would get my makeup done from people at the MAC counter and learn tips and tricks from them. I've learned a lot of different techniques, methods, tips and tricks of doing makeup over the years, and so yeah, I'm going to be sharing what I've learned with you all. And just so you know, I'm going to have timestamps in the description box because in the first part of this video, I'm going to be sharing the different variations and depths of the shades I'm using. I'm going to be using the Muse palette, the Cosmic Brushes Muse palette, or Cosmic Beauty. I think they're changing their name to Cosmic Beauty. I'm going to be using this palette and sharing with you how I would use the different shades in the palette for different eye looks, and sharing the different finishes of eyeshadows and just general ways to use them. And then I'm going to be going and doing the tutorial, this eye look tutorial, the second part of the video. I spent a lot more time in the tutorial portion, I think, than the explanation of shadows portion, but I did want to include this how to use this palette, because I know it can be overwhelming when you see an eyeshadow palette with a lot of colors like this, knowing where to start. So in this video, I'm just trying to kind of provide a starting point for beginners. And this is kind of my go-to method of applying eyeshadow, with a crease shade, outer corner shade, shimmers on the lid, inner corner. This is what I do like 7 out of 10 times. I think this is a really good method to get down if you're a beginner, because it's generally pretty quick, easy to do, easy to put looks together doing this method. It's kind of a long intro, but I just wanted to give some explanation about the series and what this video is going to be about. So if this sounds like something you're interested in seeing, then just keep watching. I did want to quickly go over the shades in this palette, like the types of finishes, the variations in depth, and how I would use the shades in this palette for different parts of eye look. And I did choose this palette because it has the different finishes that I want to talk about. It has a lot of different variations in depth, and I think the formula is very beginner friendly. And if you really did want to get this palette, which you can do this technique with any eyeshadow palette, you don't have to use this palette. This tutorial is going to be more about the technique than the shadows themselves. But if you did really want to get this palette, you could. It's frequently out of stock, but if you follow them on Instagram, sign up for their mailing list, maybe you can definitely purchase this on their next restock. To start off, with most eyeshadows, there's 3 different finishes. That you have mattes, shimmers, and satins. And there's a whole world within shimmers that I'm not going to get into right now. But mattes are these shades that don't have any shimmer to them, like they're flat. And you can use these anywhere. I mean, you can use all of these anywhere, but I stick to shimmer shades. Sorry, maybe I should start with shimmer shades. So I'm gonna actually put up on the screen a picture of this palette, and the ones with the stars are what I'm talking about. But so shimmer shades, I typically only put shimmer shades on my actual eyelid. I will put a shimmer in my inner corner typically. Mattes, you can do an all matte look. Mattes I typically put on my crease, outer corner, lower lash line. I don't want to get too complicated for this if you're a beginner, but you can also put shimmers on your lower lash line. I avoid putting shimmers in my crease and on my outer corner. I just prefer a matte crease and matte outer corner. And sometimes I don't even do a deep outer corner shade, but for this video I'm going to be doing an outer corner shade. The Muse palette doesn't have satins. This palette has satins though, and satins are, like this is a satin. A lot of these are satins, but they're kind of like a hybrid of a shimmer and a matte, where there's not a lot of shimmeriness to them. And it's sort of like a matte, but not quite. And these are good. You can use these on your lid. You can use these as outer corner shades. You can kind of do anything you would do with a matte or a shimmer with a satin. A lot of times satins are easier to blend out and are more forgiving. This palette doesn't really have any satins, so that's why I was talking about, that's why I showed you that other palette. Now that we've gone over the different finishes, I wanted to kind of go over the different like depths in the mattes and stuff. So for this eye look that I'm doing today, we have a crease, an outer corner. I'm gonna do a darker shimmer on the outer part of my lid and a lighter shimmer in here, and then an inner corner shade. So there's also transition shades, which are lighter shades that you kind of blend out your crease shade with to remove any kind of like harsh edges, harsh lines. This palette blends out really well, so the mattes in this palette blend out really well, so I don't really use a transition shade for this. But a lot of times if I need like a transition shade, I'll actually just use my face powder to blend out the harsh edges. So I'm not gonna go into transition shades within this palette because there really aren't any. There's this shade, which can be used as a transition shade for like this shade and maybe this shade, but that's kind of like the only one I see that I would use as a transition shade. So I'm going to go over crease shades, and I hope that this is making sense and not too confusing, because I feel like there's a lot. I know like there's a lot to go over, but I also want to make this as simple as possible. Right now I have highlighted all the crease shades, or shades that I would use as a crease shade. This palette has a lot of different options for crease shades. You can go pink, you can go green, you can go yellow, you can go brown. So there is definitely a lot of different options for crease shades in this palette. And outer corner shades, I see like 4. In this shade Willow, I could see myself using crease or outer corner, but if I exclude that shade, I see 1, 2, 3, 4 shades that I could possibly use for my outer corner. And you also don't have to do an outer corner shade. There's a lot of times where I don't use an outer corner shade, so that's an option as well. But for this tutorial, I will be showing you an outer corner shade. And then for shimmers, I like to do a darker shimmer on the outside and a lighter shimmer on the inside of my eyelid, or like the outer portion and inner portion. And I also prefer to do the lightest shade I can in the inner corner. You can do a matte inner corner. I like to do a shimmery inner corner, but one thing about this luster shade is what I typically go for an inner corner, is that it can be layered. It's kind of like a transformer shade. It can be layered over any matte, and it'll change kind of the effect that's shown on the matte. it looks like this, but it can be, let me swatch, I'm gonna swatch it over softly. So that's softly. And then this swatched over that, it just kind of enhances the color a little bit. I really like these iridescent topper shades and palettes. They're a lot of fun to use. I think that's everything I wanted to go over for the different types of shades that are within this palette. And I did want to give a tip about how to get started if this is like still overwhelming and you're like, yeah, I know all that, but I still don't know what to do with this palette. My advice is to pick one shade that you want to use and go from there. So I'll say Whisper. Okay, so then the darker matte or the darker shimmer shade I would use is Amethyst. This palette has a really good color story where you really can't go wrong with any kind of color combination. Some colors turn muddy when you try to blend them together, and that's for another video. But this one, you can go a lot of different ways. I'm gonna do a pink and purple look. I think Sweet Pea would go really well with these purple shades, and then outer corner shade, I think I'm gonna do Fig. So yeah, if you're feeling overwhelmed by a palette, just start with picking one shade that you want to use and then just build off of it from there. A lot of palettes, the shades will all kind of go together, but if you're working with colors, there definitely are shades that you don't want to mix together because they'll just turn really muddy and neither color will be the color that you want it to be. But I don't really see too much of an issue within this palette. I feel like it's pretty easy. Like all of these outer corner shades, I feel like would work with these transition shades or crease shades, sorry. So anyway, I think that's everything I wanted to go over before I went into the actual tutorial. So now I'm just gonna get started on the tutorial. Okay, I'm gonna start off priming my eyelids. I never skip this step. It really helps with the longevity of your shadows, and it helps them to not crease and to be more of the color you want them to be. And I would always recommend using an eyeshadow primer. There's tons out there. I just use the Milani one. There's the MAC paint pots are good. I really like the Ulta Beauty eyeshadow primer. I know Ulta Beauty is just in the US, but there's a lot of options for eyeshadow primers. So yeah, I recommend using an eye primer. And then I like to set my eye primer with a powder. I'm just going to use like a face powder. And this is just going to make everything easier to blend. And I don't put too much on because you don't want to undo the effects of the primer. You just want to kind of get an even layer just so that everything blends nicely on top. And this brush I've had for decades at this point. I don't know, well, like 2 decades or maybe a decade and a half, maybe like 15 years. But anyway, I've had it for a long time. I don't really know where it came from. I just use it for setting my eyelids, but there's a lot of different options you can use. Like you can probably use a big fluffy brush for setting your eyelids. So then I'm gonna go in with my crease brush. And this I like to use for my crease brush. It's clean, but it's stained. This is the Profusion. I got it from Amazon. It's the ES3. And it's kind of a dome type crease brush. And I like that as opposed to this, which is more flat. I hope you can kind of see the difference. And this might work better for some people, depending on your eye shape. But for me, a dome crease brush is definitely my preference. And I'm sorry if you can hear my dog in the background. So I'm going to go in to the shade Sweet Pea with my Profusion brush, and I'm just going to apply that to my crease, and I'm trying to get it above my eye socket, my eyelid. And I do this combination of looking down and looking up. And I just kind of do, I have my brush, I'm holding my brush, sorry, let me scoot over a little bit. I'm holding my brush towards the end of the handle, and I'm just doing light circular motions. And I'm sorry for the lighting. I don't have good lighting yet. We moved, I used to have better lighting, but I didn't bring my lights with me when we moved. I gave them to my mom. And so I'm just working with limited lighting. So, oh, let me zoom you in. So I'm just going in light circular motions. And I like this formula because it's buildable, and I think this formula is really good for beginners. But again, you don't have to have this palette to do. This technique will work for pretty much any palette. I mean, there are some exceptions, like you have your all shimmer palettes and your all matte palettes and ones that don't have variations in depth. But for the most part, this technique will work for most palettes. Normally, I do my eyeshadow before my base makeup, before the rest of my face makeup, because I usually get a lot of fallout with shadows, but this formula, I don't really get any fallout, which is nice. Okay. And see, I still, there's like a certain texture on my eyelids where sometimes I still have kind of a harsh line right there. So I will go in with like a clean brush and just kind of try to buff. And this one, I have my hand kind of higher up on the handle and just kind of buff that. It helps a little bit. Sometimes you just have texture on your eyelids and it's hard to get a good, really blended look. I like a really blended look, but sometimes, and I'm also zoomed in, so it doesn't actually look quite like that in person, like in my regular mirror. So I'm gonna try to not worry too much because I am zoomed in. Okay, next I'm gonna go into the shade Fig for the outer corner, and I'm gonna be using my MAC 217 brush. And I know this is from a long time ago. I've had this for like 20 years, I think, at this point. And they've changed the way they make this. This is goat hair, I think, and now they make it synthetic. So, and I've read the reviews, and this brush isn't as good as it used to be. But I think there's a brand called Rephr that have, in their #1 brush is similar from what I've heard. And I'll have that linked in the description box, but I really like this for my outer corner shades. I've tried to do other ones, but it's just not the same. Yeah, I just prefer this for my outer corner because I can apply it. And again, my hand is on the bottom of the handle. I can apply it and then take the tip, take it and then blend it with the same brush. So this is my favorite brush for the outer corner. Okay, I guess I'm just gonna do one eye. Then I actually kind of go back and maybe build up a little bit on that of the other crease shade. I'm gonna take this brush from Blend Bunny. This is the B1. I do like this Blend Bunny brush set. It came with all of these brushes, and they're very handy for like detailed work. But anyway, I'm gonna take the B1 and kind of of apply it to the top, or just kind of make it so that the crease shade still peeks through over the crease shade, like that. And then I'm kind of going to go back, and this is something I don't show in my reels, and I don't see a lot of YouTubers do, is I go back, because it would be really kind of confusing to put all this in a reel. Also, I'd have a hard time getting it under a minute, but I do a lot of back and forth with blending and making sure the eyeshadow is where I want it to be. I mean, the colors are, everything's showing up how I want it to look. So I'm going to take this amethyst shade and put that on my outer corner. I normally like to use a glitter glue, which you've seen me if you watched my reels and stuff, or my previous eyeshadow tutorial. I do like to use a glitter primer, but for this video I'm just gonna not, because it's not really like totally necessary. It just makes your shimmers pop a little bit more, and I've honestly just gotten used to it, but I don't really need to do it for every eyeshadow look. I'm just applying this. Oh, see? Yeah, I feel like maybe I should have used a glitter primer. Yeah, I'm gonna use a glitter primer because that's really not showing up very well. And this is the NYX Glitter Primer. And then I just take this flat synthetic brush and just blend it. There. Okay. Let's try that again. See that, whoops, I didn't mean to take it that far in, but that makes a big difference. This amethyst shade is more of like a putty shade. Oh, I'm using the Sigma E55 eye shading brush. This is my favorite eyeshadow or eyelid brush, shimmer packing brush, because it picks up hard to pick up shades on a brush, because a lot of times the putty shades aren't that easy to pick up with a brush. And this is looking a little bit more like muddy and stuff. I think it's because of putting the glitter primer on top of the matte and on top of what I put down already, and yeah. But I'm gonna go back and fix that. What was I saying? Oh, I really like this brush from Sigma. I want to get another one. It just picks up eyeshadow easier, and I prefer using a brush over my fingers to apply shimmer shades. That's mostly because of just like different things with, it's easier to get hard pan if you use your, which is where you can't pick up anything, because the oils, like usually it's your oils from your finger have made the pan really hard and almost impossible to pick up product. It's a lot easier to get hard pan if you're using your fingers. Also, just general like bacteria, and it's just more sanitary to use a brush. Okay, then I'm gonna go into the shade Whisper and put that in the inner part of my eyelid. Okay, for a second I thought I wasn't recording, and I just had like a bit of a panic moment. So yeah, okay. Now I'm gonna go back and fix the crease shade and stuff. So I'm gonna go back in with Sweet Pea, and because I just put down the shimmer shades and stuff, I don't want to cause like creasing and the shimmer shades to like disappear over time and just disappear. So I'm going to be really light-handed with this, and I don't know if you can see how light-handed I'm being, but I'm just doing really quick, gentle circle motions just to do kind of like more buffing. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back in with the crease shade because it kind of disappeared, or not crease shade, outer corner shade, sorry. It just like kind of disappeared, so I'm gonna go back in, deepen up the outer corner again. Bringing that up a little. Okay, that's what we're looking like right now. I'm gonna take, this is the Sigma E21 brush. I love it for my inner corner. It's really small. I made a Sigma order towards like in the middle of last year, and I had gotten Sigma before years ago, and Sigma brushes before years ago, and they were like wooden handles, like this is kind of a more of a wooden handle, but now they're plastic, and I was like, what the heck, why are there plastic brushes, like why did they downgrade? But I looked further into it, and they are made to not break. So the handle is, because sometimes the ferrule breaks off the handle, like this part will break off the handle, which of course isn't ideal, but they've made this so that it doesn't break off. So anyway, I do really like these Sigma eye brushes that I got recently, and this is one of them. So anyway, that was like a long side tangent, but I'm going to take that shade Luster on this brush and put it in my inner corner, and I take it and kind of blend it into that shimmer shade on the lid and blend it down a little bit like that, and see how that kind of just opens up the eye a bit more, adds a lot of brightness. Okay, I'm going to just use eyeshadow as eyeliner, and I'm going to take the Fig shade. I feel like this is easier for beginners to do than liquid liner, and I'm just going to apply that shade to my lash line, and I'm using this really flat brush, again from Sigma. This is the E15, and then I'm just gonna do like a small wing, maybe. It's easier to do this if you have a good angled brush, which I actually don't have. Okay. See, I wonder if you can hear my dog dreaming. She's such a cute little dreamer. Okay. Now I'm going to, and see, there's just like a slight line. If you just put it in your lash, like try to get it as close to your lashes as possible. Okay, I'm gonna now go in with my Milani Stay Put eyeliner and After Dark. And I'm like basically done with this. I can't roll it up anymore, but I gotta back up. So if I run out, it's okay. And then I'm gonna apply mascara using my Milani mascara. I don't do any false eyelashes. I don't know how to apply false eyelashes, but I know there's tons of tutorials on YouTube for false lashes if you want to go that route. I have naturally somewhat long eyelashes, so I haven't really felt inclined to do false eyelashes. And I just do several coats or several like passes through of this of mascara. Okay, so then I like to take a little bit on the bottom lashes. I just prefer having some shadow on my lower lash line. So I'm taking this smudger brush, again from Sigma, it's the E20. And I'm going into the shade Fig. And I'm just putting that on my lower lash line. And I'm taking it to the end of my iris, I guess. That I'm not taking it all the way into here. I'm taking it to about here, which is where, I don't really know like the technical terms of the eye, but I think that's the iris, the color part of your eye, where that kind of ends. I'm tapping out my concealer line. Okay, so that's what that's looking like. And then I like to take my Crease shade and I go in with like the flat kind of pinched brush. And this is the Profusion ES2. And I'm going to just pick up a little bit on the brush. You can see it's not a lot. And I'm just gonna kind of blend that line out, what I just put down. I'm just gonna blend that out a little bit. See? Okay. I'm gonna do the other eye, and then I'll be back. Oh, and I forgot to mention this earlier, but I do a combination. I kind of look up, look down, and because I have a mirror right here, I have a mirror, sorry, I have this mirror that's sitting in front of me, and then I have a mirror behind the camera, and I will just kind of look down and look up to see if the crease shade is where I want it to be, so that it's not, or the crease and the outer corner shade, to see if it's where I want it to be, because sometimes it can be hidden, like especially if you have hooded eyes, so you want to make sure you're still getting it to be visible. I forgot to mention that earlier. This is the finished look. I hope that you found this helpful. I'm going to be continuing to do videos for this series, and I'm also going to be doing like different tutorials here and there outside of this Everything I Know About Makeup series. But yeah, I really hope that this was helpful to at least some of you. And if you didn't know, there are tons and tons of other tutorials on YouTube for beginners. So if you would like more tutorials from different perspectives, different eye shapes, that kind of thing, definitely watch some more tutorials on YouTube from other creators. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you in the next video.